Hello, I'm Dr. Jeanette Raymond, psychologist, psychotherapist, and relationship expert, author of Now You Want Me, Now You Don't. Today I'm going to talk to you about why it's so hard for exes to let go of each other, or people who've separated and they want to make a new life for themselves, but they find it really, really hard to let go, and they're always at it, fighting, accusing. They just can never really just let go. So I'm going to tell you the story of Sheila, who after 7 years of divorce was still obsessed with thinking about how awful her ex-husband was and how much she was suffering. He had another life with another woman in the last couple of years, and that made it worse for her. And in her experience, the fact that he had grown up and left her after she'd taken care of him made her feel like she was being robbed. So that was her experience of a kind of sadistic attachment figure in her life, this ex-husband who was supposed to take care of her but didn't. And not only did he not take care of her, he was now having a life with someone else and living really well, and she had to live in much more modest means. She had to do things that to scrimp and save. She had to think of every penny. She couldn't afford to buy her sons the things that her ex-husband could, and so on and so forth. So she felt the sadistic aspect of her ex choosing to have a life of his own after she had herself initiated divorce proceedings. So the part of her that originally initiated divorce proceedings, he didn't want to get divorced. He was happy to stay and work through whatever stuff they were going through, but she didn't. She felt like he'd betrayed her, that she'd lost control of him because he was now doing things that were outside of their unwritten rules. And so that was a masochistic aspect of herself. The thing that she wanted most, which was to be able to have him and have the life they were having and keep him, in her ambit, she gave that up. She acted in a masochistic way to suffer, hoping that he would then feel guilty and ashamed and reconfigure his sense of obligation and duty towards her, come back, atone for his sins, and get back in the relationship. So when couples like this are unable to let go because they're still fighting about who owes what and who took what from whom and who did what to whom, then it's kind of this sadomasochistic cycle which they're absolutely emotionally engaged in. So Sheila, when she was neither masochistic nor sadistic, when she just felt nothing works, I can't make anything happen, no matter what I do, I don't get any rewards in my life, no matter how hard I work, I can't get my business going, I can't get my sons to do what I want, I can't get my ex to give me the money that I deserve, all those sorts of things, then she went into this dark hole, and it was a stuck place for her. She'd be miserable, unhappy, but wanting to be alone, not feeling like she had any power and control over her own life, which in fact she did have, but in that place of feeling unengaged because she wasn't feeling vengeful, nor was she feeling self-recriminating. She was feeling nothing. And so we called it this stuck place where she was not alive. It was kind of like being buried alive in a coffin. She didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. She didn't want to go out. She didn't want to go to work. She didn't want to do anything. And what it took to get her out of this place was either a masochistic stance or a sadistic stance. And mostly it would be a masochistic one, which she'd say, well, I'm rubbish, I'm trash, look at all the things I did, nothing works, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, I do all this for them, and I don't get any appreciation, I don't get recognized, I don't get anything, what's the point? So that masochistic part of her would want to give up. But really, it was to make others feel guilty and that they were not doing their duty by her, that she was not getting what she was owed by them, which was loyalty, fealty, obedience, constant care, support, and so on and so forth. And then when she couldn't evoke it from them, because she doesn't have control of her husband anymore, she doesn't have the same kind of control of her children because they're growing up, they're young teens or early adults, she gets so furious and so angry and so incensed that what she's entitled to is no longer under her control to get. She then shifts to the sadistic part of her, the vengeful, punishing, punitive, recriminatory part, and starts attacking her ex and hating him and calling him names and punishing him, not answering any of his communications to do with the children, and blaming the children for not taking her side on things, and so on and so forth. So this was a cycle. And of course, if she's acting in a sadomasochistic way, so is her ex. So when she's in the masochistic position, feeling nobody cares, I did all this work, and I brought up this family, and I sacrificed this, that, and the other, and I'm not getting any reward, then she would feel his sadism because he's having fun somewhere else, he's spending money on other people and his other life and forgetting about her, and she feels like it's her stuff. She earned it, and he's giving it away, he's just, throwing it away, wasting it. So she feels his sadism in that sense. Now, when she's in a punitive place, when she's getting angry and she's trying to recoup what she thinks is her rightful due, what she's earned, what she's worked for, and she's doing it in a threatening kind of a way because she doesn't have any control anymore, then her ex feels his masochism and her sadism. So when they're engaged in this switching of masochism and sadism towards one another, you cannot let go because it's a unit all by itself. It's a magical unit that each one needs the other to survive. Because if they're not doing this to each other, then you go into that empty, stuck place where you're dead, there's no motivation, you don't want to do anything, you just want to be alone and fade away, and life has no meaning, no joy, no purpose, no reward. So in order for both of them to kind of be alive and vital and feel themselves in the world, they had to engage in this sadomasochistic dynamic. And neither of them was willing to break it. So they had to continue doing it. So I guess you're asking me, you're thinking, well, what would it look like if it was broken? Here's how it would break. If Sheila would think about how she started off in the relationship. It was an unconscious wish. If I take care of my partner-to-be, and I fix him up and make him nice, and he's like my creation, I create the partner that I want, then it becomes a duty and an obligation to maintain it, to pay it back, to treat it with a never-ending sense of gratitude. So it becomes a transactional relationship, and it's not based on love, because love would mean allowing each one to grow separately. There's no control, there's no obligation, there's no duty, that it comes from desire, not from quid pro quo. And that's what this relationship unfortunately started out as. So then it has to be masochistic or sadistic, because if you're not getting what you want, then you're going to be sadistic. And if you're being stopped from growing, then you're going to be masochistic towards yourself. And that's what her husband did with her, and she did it with him, at the point at which she felt betrayed by his wanting to go outside the marriage for his relationships and for his growth, and she dissolved it. She chose to do that. If she had stayed with it and worked through it and looked at, why are you unhappy? Why do you need to do all these things? What's going on? Looked at her, what she felt was her creation, and that he had to live within it. He couldn't go outside it. They couldn't do anything outside. Then it was bound to fail, and she's going to have terrible trouble thinking that her creation is no longer there, and then she's out of control. So what's left? Masochism and sadism, to try and punish, retrieve, grab, hurt, maim, and so on. So it's really about changing the nature of the relationship from a transactional, you owe me, I do this, you do that, you owe me, you're bad if you don't, it's all about duty and obligation, to one of joy in each other, the joy of watching each other grow and be happy, and step into the enjoyment, rather than trying to say it belongs to me and not to you, and saying who's the deserving one and who's the undeserving one. Because that kind of relationship is based on judgment and valuing each other, as opposed to loving each other for whoever you are. So that's how it would look. And I'd be very interested to know of your stories and your experiences. Maybe you can reflect and think, are some of your relationships based on the sadomasochistic kind of switch? And if so, how do you deal with it? Are you trying to break up with someone and it's impossible? Are you fighting through it year after year and still feeling like it's the only thing that sets you on fire? Then it becomes a problem. And I do suggest that you get some help with it. And of course, I'm here to help you by answering your questions. And I offer global counseling and psychotherapy should you be living in the Los Angeles area. Okay, bye for now.